This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. This is Clutch with Keon Rose in cloudy Nooga, Tennessee. The clouds are very much back, and there's a lot to talk about. Florida pounds Georgia over the weekend, giving them control of the SEC East. Where do they fall in the rankings? Do they stay? Do they rise? I mean, that was a very dominant victory. And, you know, Georgia not looking the same ever since the second half of that Tennessee game. Ever since the second half of the Tennessee game without Chubb, they haven't looked anywhere near the same. And we'll talk about them. But I'm going to open with the World Series. Just go ahead, get it out of the way. It was fun. It was one of my picks last weekend for games to keep an eye on because there were 3 World Series games over the weekend, and I was worried that the series would be over before I had a chance to come back in, break down the games, maybe have a game 7, and I was correct. There's no more baseball to talk about after this. 109 days until pitchers and catchers return to training camp, for those of you who care. But the game, and really the World Series in general, kind of indicative of the Royals' whole season. They just keep moving forward and chugging forward with the way that they play. And that was the reason why the World Series games were, in my opinion, games to keep an eye out for this particular weekend, because the way that the Royals play baseball is weird looking. It's a very strange looking thing. Like, the way that they play is not like how most people play, which is you play with some kind of a strategy, with some kind of a team philosophy. And the Royals play this, you know what, we'll get on base and we'll figure it out later. They're trailing. And the reason why they seem like they're never out of a game is because they just kind of, let's just get on base and figure it out. And then they make decisions that seem strange, and it's fluky because if anything goes wrong with the decisions that they're making, they don't come close to even making it to the World Series, much less winning it. You know, and last night when they tied up the game in the 9th, that is the perfect example of a team that is getting the luck of the draw in a lot of ways, in addition to their bizarre playing style. That the way that they play allows them to be in these situations where they can be fortunate. They're playing a Mets team that's not, you know, the greatest defensive team ever, but they're playing a pretty good Mets team. And what ends up transpiring is that Hosmer is on third base, and when the ball gets knocked into play, David Wright grabs the ball, looks at third. He holds Hosmer on third. Okay, Hosmer at that point shouldn't move. Like, that's a risky thing to do if Hosmer takes off at that point. David Wright throws it to Duda on first, and Hosmer takes off for the Royals. He starts careening towards home plate, and Duda freaks out. If Duda sets his feet, if Duda doesn't panic and just throws it to the catcher, Hosmer is out. The Mets win. We have one more baseball game to talk about. Instead, Duda panics and throws the ball well wide of home plate, like just crazy wide of home plate, like not even close to home plate. And catcher obviously can't get the ball and get Hosmer out. Hosmer ties up the game, and now we're going into extra innings where the Royals have apparently the clear advantage. It's like watching the Royals is someone made a meme on the internet. I was looking at it earlier with the most interesting man in the world, and it said, "I don't always watch Royals baseball, but when I do, I don't know when I'm going to bed." That's the epitome of the Royals in the postseason. And when they win, also you don't know when you're going to sleep, because apparently we're playing this 14-inning, 12-inning series of games. That this World Series started with a game that went 14 innings and ended with a game that went 12. It's insanity. The Kansas City Royals are the epitome of insanity. Their baseball team represents chaos and everything that stands for. Meanwhile, on the Mets side, I don't know what happened at the end of that game. You've got a 2-0 lead throughout the entire thing. Okay, you're flipping back and forth. Like I'm flipping back and forth between Sunday Night Football and the game, and you jump back over, and for whatever reason, the Royals are tied. I don't understand how this happened, but the explanation that I've been researching and reading as of this morning is basically this. Matt Harvey pitched into the 9th inning, and I did catch some of the talk on sports radio last night as well, but Matt Harvey pitched into the 9th inning, and he maybe shouldn't have. Okay, he wanted to complete the whole game, and he ended up giving up the walk that got 2 runs or 2 he got 2 Royals on base, and those are the 2 runs that ultimately ended up scoring and tying the game. And the manager, Terry Collins, is saying that I knew I should not have let him pitch, but Matt Harvey was very determined, and he looked at me and he said, I want to pitch. I want to close this out. I want to end this, so I let him pitch. You're like, dude, what are you talking about, man? Terry, what are you talking about? You're the manager. Matt Harvey doesn't pitch if you don't want him to pitch. If you think that the closer, Familia, is going to do a better job, you don't. What are you talking about? You don't let Matt Harvey pitch there. You just don't. I don't care if he wants to. What kind of explanation is that anyway? This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose, just breaking down the World Series here because it's a weird one. Okay, it's a weird one. We have Bartolo Colon sightings. He's 42. And also he's enormous. And we have Matt Harvey telling his manager, I want to pitch into the 9th. The manager doesn't think it's a good idea, but he does it anyway, which then proceeds to dump the blame on Harvey. And you're Matt Harvey. I mean, how do you, I mean, you're not going to tell yourself no. You're the player. The player is to be managed by, and I know this is shocking news for all of you, the manager. The manager manages the players. That's your job. The players will tell you, I want to do this thing and I want to do that thing. I mean, is there been a World Series where there are 2 managers who are just not in control of their ships more so than this one? You have Terry Collins, who is basically told by Matt Harvey, I want to pitch. And so, despite believing that Matt Harvey not pitching was the best choice, he runs Matt Harvey out there. And then you've got Ned Yost, whose players bunt when he doesn't tell them to bunt. They just bunt whenever they feel like it. So you've got the 2 guys on either side just not in control of their players, not in control of their ships, and one of them won the World Series, and that's Ned Yost. I don't understand what's happening in the World Series. This has been one of the weirder ones for me, just because these are bizarre storylines. They are. You've got 2 managers who are not in control of anything, and one wins because his team does whatever they feel like. Logically, Hosmer should still be on 3rd base right now. I wouldn't have told him to run, because if Duda sets his feet and makes a correct throw from first, Hosmer's out and the game's over. And the Mets are still in the postseason, and we still have baseball to talk about. We would still have one more game to talk about. Game going back to Kansas City. Instead, we have Kansas City Royals as the world champions because the Royals decide to play baseball however they want to play baseball. And it's weird and it's bizarre and it's fluky and it makes no sense. But you can play baseball that way, apparently, and win titles. And just like Back to the Future, as the saying goes, the Royals don't have to keep going back to 1985. They are world champions in 2015. So congratulations to them. They did a lot of things right. And the weird way that they play, that's what got them here. Okay. I mock it and I make fun of it. You know, you knock the things you don't understand. I do. Everybody does. But the way that they played, they stuck with what got them here. And it worked. And the Mets didn't. The Mets ran out Harvey in the 9th, which is weird because that's not a thing that they had been typically doing. And Matt Harvey's nickname is the Dark Knight, which is cool. It's one of the cooler nicknames in sports right now. Okay, I mean you're Batman. Basically, you're Batman. Which is why it's funny that you either die a hero or you're pitched long enough to see yourself become the villain. Matt Harvey. He pitched too long. He was over 100 pitches. He was starting to lose control. I mean, I don't know what logical decision Terry Collins had for running Matt Harvey back out there in the ninth, outside of the fact that Matt Harvey wanted to run back out there in the ninth, which shouldn't be Matt Harvey's decision, quite frankly. It shouldn't. You're the manager of the team. Take control of your team and make the decision. And you know what? If you choose to go against what originally was your decision, because Terry Collins said he didn't want to put Harvey out there. He did not want to put Harvey out there. Then your decision to listen to Matt is your decision. And you're the manager of the team, and you should still take blame for that and not throw Matt Harvey under the bus, back up 30 million times, and then drive off, which is what he did. He just threw Matt Harvey under the bus. He threw Matt Harvey under the bus. Could not be any more distancing than what he actually did, which was say this was all Matt Harvey's fault. No, this is a team game. It is partially Matt Harvey's fault because yes, he walked and got those guys on base. He walked them. I get it. Okay, he didn't have control of his pitch, and that's what happened. But the manager should have been there to make the decision. And also, the closer, Familia, he blew 3 saves this World Series. 3. He blew 3 saves. That's a World Series record. Nobody has ever done that in the history of the Baseball World Series. Ever. Nobody has been that terrible closing out games in the World Series. He's just bad. He was just bad. All right? And that's everybody. You point the finger at everybody. You're the manager especially. Cover for your guys. That's what a leader's supposed to do. If you have someone under you that messes up, you take the heat because you're the leader. And you have Terry Collins literally distancing himself from Matt Harvey and figuratively throwing him under a bus. It makes no sense. You would never as a leader do that. Okay. And this show, I have talked about leadership before because it's an interesting topic. Okay. When you are tasked with being the face of something or being the decision maker for multiple people, that is fascinating to me. That there are people that can do that well and that there are people that can't do that very well. And I grapple with what makes good leaders and what makes bad leaders. And what Terry Collins did to Matt Harvey yesterday is a thing that is consistent with bad leadership, which is that you don't take responsibility for anything. For nothing. I mean, it's not even like he said, yeah, Matt wanted to go out there and I shouldn't have let him out there. He basically said Matt Harvey made such a strong case to go back out there. I felt compelled to let him go back. That I went with my heart instead of my mind and yada 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 yada. Really, Terry? Honestly, that's low. That's real low. That is, I haven't seen anything like that in quite some time. The manager throwing the player out there, even Chuck Pagano with the Colts. Okay, Chuck Pagano and what he did with Andrew Luck, not Andrew Luck. What he did with the that weird punt formation. You remember with the wide receiver that was suddenly snapping the ball to another guy, and the whole team shifted off to the right, and that play looked stupid, and the ball was not supposed to be snapped. And Chuck Pagano said that he never wanted the ball to be snapped. It was just to see if he could draw the Patriots off sides, and it didn't work. And and Chuck Pagano laid on that grenade for his team that did not do the thing that he told them to do. He told them not to snap the ball, and they snapped the ball. And Chuck Pagano said, it's my fault. Chuck Pagano just showed signs of good leadership there. He took the heat even though it wasn't his fault, because you're the leader. You put them in a position where that was the thing that could happen, and you took responsibility. Terry Collins didn't. We're going to talk some Georgia, Florida, break that down a little bit, and already start hyping up LSU, Alabama. That's the big game of the season, quite frankly, in my opinion. And we're going to be hyping that game up here on...
This is America Now with Meghan McCain.
President Obama makes Jimmy Carter look like Napoleon Bonaparte. We have a president that leads from behind, and when America doesn't lead, bad things happen.
Meghan McCain, weekdays at 7 p.m.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Tired of insurance companies? Tired of doctors that won't spend time with you? Do something different. Leave the sick care model of medicine and come to Dr. Danielle Mitchell, the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health, where we're interested in long-term health solutions, not the quick fixes. Come see me, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, at the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health. I'm all about the long-term healthcare solutions and doing what's best. On the web, you can find me at ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. That's ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Or call us at 875-1005, 875-1005, or find us on social media, Facebook, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, or the ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Let's go, ya!
Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job and would like to consider owning your own business? If you are, please call me, as I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that fit you, the economy that we're in, and the type of businesses that are right in the greater Chattanooga area. After I help my clients find the right opportunity, I also help them find the best way to finance the business, including paying yourself through the startup phase. If you would like to learn more about opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My name is Bruce Krebs at the Entrepreneur Source. Phone number is 423-875-5621.
Sky Aerial Services uses advanced drone technology to give you a better perspective and depth of your property and project. We offer aerial photography and video for your business, farm, home, or advertising campaigns, as well as editing services to complete the experience. Call us at 423-521-0284 and see how we can help you tell your story about your business, property, or project. We work with real estate professionals, both commercial and residential, developers, engineer inspectors, surveyors, ad agencies, auto and boat dealers, mapping services, insurance inspectors, corporate marketing, charity events, weddings, and photographers. Our consultation is free. Call 423-521-0284. That's 423-521-0284, or visit our website, skyaerialservices.com. Sky Aerial Services. The sky is our limit.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report, every Sunday at 9 a.m. Mark your calendars right now, because my guest this week is none other than one of the leading GOP presidential contenders, neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson. Don't miss a revealing conversation with candidate Ben Carson this Sunday at 9 a.m. on the Costa Report, right here on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Expect cloudy skies with a few passing showers out there through the afternoon. They'll slowly push off to the east. Highs upper 60s to near 70. Tonight, a spotty shower early. Otherwise, some late fog. Lows upper 50s. For Tuesday and Wednesday, some clouds but a little drier. Highs 70 to 72. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily, locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's. It's always good. And I'm WDEF News Swallow's chief meteorologist, Patrick Hoare.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Florida played Georgia this weekend, and Florida came out victorious, drubbing the Bulldogs 27-3, and that one was a bad one. And there's a lot to talk about in that game because, first off, Florida takes control of the SEC East, and they'll basically have it wrapped up next week if they beat Vanderbilt, which, yeah, I think they kind of got that one in the bag. This is sports. You never know, that whole spiel that you never know, but at the same time, you sort of do know, though you do sort of know sometimes when a thing is a thing. Like, if we're realists here, right? The lottery is a bad idea. You are not going to win the lottery. I'm not going to win the lottery. None of us are going to win the lottery. And if you play the lottery, you usually go in the back of your mind knowing that this is not your lucky day. You're not going to win the lottery. It is so unlikely that you really shouldn't be playing it. It really is what it comes down to, that it's a tax by the government. It's a stupid tax. And yes, money from the lottery goes to a good place. It goes to education and schools, but you already pay taxes for that. You're not providing anything extra with regards to that. And also, a lot of the money doesn't make it to schools, but that's a story for another day. And quite frankly, a story for another show. This is a sports show, Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. I'm talking some Florida, Georgia football here, but Florida can wrap up the SEC East with a victory over Vanderbilt next week. And they probably will. Like 99% chance. And if you want to try and make some money, bet Vanderbilt. But also that's like playing the lottery. Just understand all of these things. Okay, just have that in your mind. Vanderbilt plays pretty solid defense, but they don't score. Georgia plays really great defense, and they score lots. So good luck over there. Secondly, Georgia, with the mind-boggling decision to start Faton Bauta before that game. And I think we're all confused because Grayson Lambert hasn't been, world beater. I think we all thought Grayson Lambert was going to be better than what he turned out to be this season. But at the same time, Grayson Lambert's been pretty solid. Grayson Lambert has been pretty solid. He hasn't been way off the charts in either direction. He's had some great games. He's had some bad games. More or less, Grayson Lambert is an okay quarterback. And to me, that's fine. I'm okay with a quarterback just being all right. That's fine to me. What is not okay is Faton Bauta playing in this particular game because he was a third stringer. Like, Bauta wasn't even a second stringer. And I understand Georgia had a few things that they wanted to fix. And I understand the logic behind putting Faton Bauta out there. I don't understand the execution, I guess, the actual doing of the thing, because we were all confused. I still think Grayson Lambert gives them a better shot to beat Florida than Bauta. But yes, Florida's got an amazing pass rush. I mean, they get back there and they beat you up. And the way that Georgia had been running the football as of late, it was hard to do. It was hard to run the football the way that they had been doing and expect to think that you're going to beat the Gators. But you got to go with the quarterback that gives you the better chance. And that's Lambert. And no, it's not a hindsight is 2020 thing, because I think we all were surprised to see Bauta. Like, there was a rumor on Friday. Okay, I just walked into a rumor and I felt really bad because I just straight up read it off of gridironwhatever.com. Okay, and it was just a post and I didn't know whether or not I should trust it. I went ahead and just read the report. I didn't really try and substantiate it because it caught me off guard. I wasn't looking for Faton Bauta. I Googled Grayson Lambert to try and pull up some of his numbers for the show. And then I ran into, Faton Bauta's getting the start. and it didn't make any sense to me. I didn't I just didn't understand where to go with that information, so I just read it, and turns out that the information was good, so I feel good there. Journalistic integrity still intact and all that, but it's still weird that he played. I would rather have been wrong about that one because I don't understand what happened. You run out Bauta, and, he throws 4 interceptions. There's a reason why you had him at third string. No, Mark Richt, you're not crazy. You had him at third string for a reason. He's the third best quarterback on your team, and he looked like it, playing a very, very good Florida team. He shouldn't have been out there. You don't put people in positions to fail. You don't ask people to do things that they cannot do. You can't put Faton Bauta out there. He can't do what you asked him to do, which is quarterback this team. It's one thing if you want to have some running packages for him because that dude's huge and fast. But it's another thing for him to get the start and play in the game long enough to go, 15 for 33, throw 4 interceptions? That was dreadful. And he didn't have a chance. Not against that defense, at all. And here's the thing, I understand Bauta's ultimately in the game, like I was saying earlier. And this is Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We're talking Florida and Georgia, the game this past weekend, because to me, this was such an important game. Whoever wins this game wins the SEC East. You're going to the SEC championship game. That is happening. And Mark Richt went with Faton Bauta to try and give his team a little extra oomph. Okay, Bauta's more mobile than Lambert is. And when those Gators get into the backfield, I know that you're going to want that mobility. You're going to want to run, maybe have some running packages in there, keep the defense on their heels. I get that. I do. I understand. What I do not understand, and what I cannot really understand, is you actually played him. Because while he has some strengths that give you certain advantages, ultimately, he's an inferior quarterback, and that pass rush is amazing. The front 4 for the Gators, I think they might be up there with Alabama's front 4. I'm not saying they're better than them, but I'm saying they might be right up there. I mean, you can't run out Faton Bauta there, right? You can contact us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Somebody send me something. Hot News Talk Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Our Twitter handle is @HotNewsRadio. But if you search Hot News Talk Radio in any of those, you'll find us. We're the first thing that comes up. We'd love to hear from you. And I'd love to hear that I'm not crazy, right? You can't play Faton Bauta there. He's a third-string quarterback, and you just started him. He didn't play any games this season. Grayson Lambert has started every game. He's looked decent enough. A bad Lambert game can't look as bad as a bad Bauta game. It just didn't make any sense to me. And I think the third thing I noticed was something that I mentioned last week, and I'm not tooting my own horn here or anything like that. It's not rocket science, what I mentioned last week, which is that the team that figures out how to run the ball first is going to win this football game, and it was Florida. Kelvin Taylor comes back to haunt Georgia again after last year, basically putting in the similar performance. Kelvin Taylor went for 171 yards and 2 touchdowns. And if you let me flip through my notes here to find what he did last year, he had 197 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. I mean, it's like the same performance. And I don't know what demons need to be exercised there to get Kelvin Taylor from just dialing up all the yards on you. But probably one thing that you can do better is to not give them 4 more possessions than what they already had. And that's because he played Faton Bauta. And I'm not blaming Bauta. We knew what the extent of his abilities were. He was put in a position to fail ultimately. And look, I get it. Mark Richt, you got to do what you got to do. You've got to take chances to try and win games. You do. But I don't understand that one. I don't understand reaching that hard got a decent team, and it's not like Georgia was running the ball great. So I understand wanting to take that pressure off of Lambert. They're not running the ball great. Basically, since the second half of that Tennessee game, Nick Chubb goes down with an injury, and Georgia doesn't look quite the same. So I get it. I really do. I just don't get it. It's college football all over again. It's as soon as you think you understand, you don't understand. And I was reading a lot of the blogs on the internet. I listened to the other shows in this town. We were all scratching our head on the Fatan Bauta one, and we were just like, not sure that was actually going to come to pass. Like that was actually really happening. And there was no confirmed sources on Friday, outside of the Gridiron, whatever site. I forget what it's called. Okay, I found that site on accident. I didn't even find that thing on purpose. So there's nothing for me to really pull up there. But I have to wonder. I really do, because there are situations where you just scratch your head and go, I don't get that one. I just don't. And would you have done that? Would you have done that? If you were in Mark Richt's shoes, what would you have done? I would have played Lambert. And I'm trying my hardest right now to think of any other situations in sports where that's happened. And I can't think of any off the top of my head where somebody else, where a coach gave somebody else the start in a position where his regular starter might have just done all right. I mean, we had obviously the unconventional wisdom of Terry Collins last night in the World Series, where he let Matt Harvey pitch when he wanted to go to his closer and when he probably should have, albeit the Familia's blowing games in the World Series anyway. But give him an entire inning to work with. Don't give him 2 bases loaded if he's been blowing games. That's all I'm saying. But I can't think of a situation where somebody else got the start. Probably the Warriors under Mark Jackson a few years back started Harrison Barnes at the 4, but that actually worked out for them. And that doesn't started Harrison Barnes at the 4 over David Lee, but that makes sense. And it's hard to say that in hindsight, but it actually does make sense. David Lee is bad at defense. Harrison Barnes is not bad at defense. Start Harrison Barnes. We get it. Grayson Lambert is a better quarterback than Fatan Bauta because he's the starter. Fatan Bauta is the 3rd stringer. It's not like they were battling for position at any point in the spring. Bauta was never in that conversation. So you have to be concerned there that just the lapse in judgment, I guess, but not just from Mark Richt, but the whole coaching staff. You all get together and go, are we really doing this? And they all talked about this for what I have to imagine is a considerable amount of time. And then they said, yeah, you know what? We're doing this. But Grayson Lambert was getting starters reps on Tuesday. That wasn't a decision that you made beforehand. That was a decision that you just kind of came up with during the week. And I don't know that you necessarily I don't know that you're necessarily at an advantage for what you did there. In fact, I'm sure you're not. And I guess what I want to know is what do you have to do to think that decision makes sense? What actually has to cross your mind? What are you looking at in Florida to make that decision make sense to you? Because everyone was shocked, and Lambert's not hurt. To my knowledge, he's not recovering from any injury. So you really thought that this was the better decision, and the dude that you had as your 3rd string quarterback all season long throws 4 interceptions in a big game against a great defense. Surprise. I don't get it. I really, really don't. So in a little bit, we're going to be talking LSU and Alabama. That is going to be the big game of the SEC West and the big game of the SEC. And quite frankly, a very big game just in the sport in general, because, of course, whoever wins this game and kind of gets a leg up here in the rankings, you're trying to vault yourself into that college football playoff and stay there. And they're not going to let two teams from one conference go, because they didn't let Baylor and TCU get away with it last year. So we'll talk LSU, Alabama, hype that game up as much as we can, and more on Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Are you tired of feeling like just another account number to your financial advisor? Try something refreshingly different. Call Edward Jones Financial Advisor, Patrick Neal in Hickson at 870-7894. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
Social media, we're on that. Hot News Talk Radio on Facebook, at Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter. Download the TuneIn app and follow us anywhere at any time. AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Just a little bit of a look here at the college football scoreboard from over the weekend. Joshua Dobbs and Volunteers dropped the Kentucky Wildcats 52-21. Arkansas Razorbacks
on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Arkansas Razorbacks beat Tennessee Martin 63-28. And when I say beat, I mean absolutely pounded to oblivion. And A&M beat South Carolina 35-28. And as I mentioned before, Florida over Georgia 27-3. Also, Vanderbilt gets shut out by Houston. Just, if you're a Vandy fan, continuing to ruin your day, because you're going to be running into Florida next week, and they're going to try and sew up the SEC East against you. That's their mission there. So, talking about it last week, Tennessee had a small sliver of hope there to try and win the SEC East. Yeah, it's gone. They needed Georgia, and Georgia needed Grayson Lambert, and neither of those things happened. And we're here now. Faton Bauta, 15 for 33, 154 yards, 4 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. And the Bulldogs didn't run the ball well. Sonny Michel, 45 yards, Keith Marshall, 16 yards, Brendan Douglas, 4 yards, Faton Bauta, 4 yards, which his mobility is kind of what he was put into the game for, I imagine. This is my opinion, by the way. I imagine his mobility is what he was put into the game for, and 4 yards rushing on 3 attempts for Faton Bauta. He threw the ball 33 times, and we're all confused. Kelvin Taylor runs for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. And the Gators are ranked 11th, and they're staying ranked 11th. They will hang in there. They're a one-loss team, and honestly, they've looked every bit as impressive as you would have thought, you know, an old Gators team would look like, a classic Gators team. I don't think that anybody had Florida going as far and as strong as they have this season. Like, we all know that Jim McElwain's a good coach, and I think that we all believe like he was going to turn this team around eventually. But this is fast. This is really fast. It's a huge, huge turnaround. Huge. I've been really impressed by Jim McElwain. His teams win big. His teams win close games. And he seems to always make the correct decisions. And I think part of it is a little bit of luck because, I mean, not that they were lucky against Tennessee, but Butch Jones could have put that game away, and he didn't. You're just fortunate sometimes with who you run into. That's all. Ran into Tennessee at a time when Tennessee still trying to figure out how to win. You know, you're 3 years into this thing with Butch Jones, and they're still trying to figure out how to win. And McElwain, he's got his team, you know, with other things that they need to learn how to do, but figuring out how to win is not one of those things. They are a very, very solid ball club in that regard. And I think one of the things that I like about them the most is that, like, they have a decent identity as to who they want to be on both sides of the ball, which is hard to come by for a first-year head coach in a team. It really is. That's something that's very, very hard to come by. Now, both of these teams were on bye weeks last week, and both of them are going to be playing in arguably the biggest game of the season by the weekend. And one of the things about them that is interesting to note is that they're the two best teams in the SEC. That's LSU and that's Alabama. Leonard Fournette is a Heisman Trophy candidate. No doubt about it. He consumes people. Like, when they play, boy, they rely very heavily on him. And the passing game is starting to emerge a little bit for them as well. In these recent weeks, they don't rely just on Leonard Fournette to get the job done. And against Western Kentucky, they really had some strong play out of Brandon Harris. He was 11 for 20, 286 yards, 3 touchdowns. You know, and then you get an extra 150 from Leonard Fournette, and you realize, oh yeah, this team, when all of the pieces are working offensively, this is a hard team to stop. Tough team to stop here. And Alabama, of course, Alabama defensively, that front seven. And I mean, first off, front seven, I mean, they're deep. They can pull guys off the bench and still be very dominant. Their secondary is extremely good. They continue to amaze me because they win games through a number of means. They're usually not like blowing people out, which is the interesting thing, that they have that loss to Ole Miss, the 43-37, but they score up in the 30s. If you want to hang with Alabama, that's a round where you need to score, unless you're Tennessee, and then for no good reason, you hold them to 19, which I don't think anybody saw from Tennessee's defense at all. But outside of that, Alabama, they're a high-scoring ball club. And LSU is going to chew up yards on the ground. So I want to start the pregame hype from Monday because I'm so excited about this game. I am excited about this game. So just have this in your mind. We have Bill Bender from Sporting News on every Thursday, and we talk college football with him. He's the national football writer for sportingnews.com. He's an amazing guest. Always enjoy our time with him. And I'm obviously going to ask him about this game and all of the ramifications from it because, look, it's one of those things that, to me, is super cool from the aspect of anytime you have a pre-championship game in the middle of the season, which is what this is, that the winner of this game is going to be in very much in control of how they finish out the rest of the season. And if you're able to win the SEC West, go to the SEC championship game where there is a good chance, not 100%, but a good chance you will dominate whoever shows up from the East, which is Florida now. It's not like these teams are just way better than Florida, will just outclass Florida. But I think they are better teams than Florida. You can win that. I mean, you've punched your ticket to the college football playoff. And once you're in there, anything can really happen. Anything can really happen, as we learned from Ohio State last season. You just got to get in. Okay, there's 4 spots. You just need to get in one. And to represent the SEC, Alabama, LSU, Nick Saban doesn't like when we bury his team, but when they lost to Ole Miss, it didn't look like it was going to be them. It just didn't. And we buried them. We did. And I don't like to make these huge proclamations and these huge predictions. I do like to make predictions, but mostly for the fun of it. Like, there's a smugness, there's an arrogance that comes with being a sports fan and being a knowledgeable sports fan that, yeah, we like to know stuff. You know, like when people tell you that your team is bad and you know that your team is bad, that's not an insult. But when someone tells you that, yeah, no, you're wrong because, and then they list a bunch of reasons why you don't know what you're talking about, then that does get to you. That does get to you. And I think that I don't like to make those predictions because it doesn't make any sense. Like if you look at a lot of ESPN writers predicted who was going to be in the playoffs this year and in the NFL. And it's hilarious because if you look at it, it's already wrong. You know, we have the Colts going deep into the playoffs. We have all of these things. And I just see the pointlessness of making those huge predictions from here. It's fun. It's interesting. But then what do you get out of it when you're ultimately wrong, which you are, because none of us really, really understand this giant monster that is college football. That we want to understand, but the reason why we watch every week is because we ultimately don't know. And I don't think anybody saw that Mark Richt was going to start Faton Bauta in a game against Florida, a huge game, a must-win game, because the winner takes control of their destiny in the SEC East, and he starts Faton Bauta. Nobody saw that coming. Nobody saw Florida dropping Georgia 27-3 a week ago. We did not see that coming. And if you tell me that you saw that coming, you fib, my friend. You tell a lie, good sir. Okay, you do. It's AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. We're talking about how we don't know anything in college football, ultimately. Like, there's not anything that you can know definitively. Nothing at all. But we can try to know. And I think what's cool about big landmark games like Alabama, LSU, is that this is the time that it is acceptable to guess. And this is the time that it's acceptable to try and act like you know, because it's just fun. That both teams are here now. They're both coming off of bye weeks. They both look really, really good. And you guess just to see if you can ride the bull and control it in any way. You can't. Nobody can. Okay, but sports predicting is interesting. It just is. And the reason that I find it the most interesting probably is because I see sports, and why I enjoy sports as much as I do, I see sports as a shadow of real life. Why sports are ultimately important in our society and in our culture is because it's a shadow of life. It's a shadow of real life. Things that we do in sports that people will tell you, oh, look at sports fans and how crazy they are and how ridiculous they are. And isn't it weird that this woman has her entire front yard covered in orange because she likes the Vols? And isn't it strange that this Bulldogs fan is living and dying with this team every week? Isn't that weird? Meanwhile, everybody does this. Is there a brand of something that you buy in the store that you prefer over another brand? And have you ever thought about why you like that brand more than the other one? Because most of these products are the same product. Okay, you're looking at these products that you see as competing products. P&G makes most of them. They're the company that owns the companies that you like. But if you have brand loyalty, okay, if you like Ford more than you like Chevy, and You've got a list of reasons why you're a sports fan. You may not be rooting for a team, but you like a team more than another one. You do. Sports are a shadow of actual life. So I think it's hilarious and interesting that we try and predict from now all of the things that we think we know about the end of the college football season. I think it's a silly thing to try and do. But we only do things like that in sports because we do it in other parts of our life. We only do these things in sports because we do it with our kids. You raise your kids, you try and plan and map out their whole life as though you could know from now what's going to happen to them 15 years from now. You don't. And I'm not saying don't plan for your children's lives. But what I am saying is you can't predict from here. And it's silly to try to. Plan for it. Plan for your kids to go to college because they're more likely to get work if they're educated than if they're not. Plan for it, but by no means try and predict like, yeah, no, my kid's going to Vanderbilt because that's where they're going and they're not going to get into this kind of trouble and they are going to do. You don't know that. You don't know that. You plan for things, but you can't predict their outcomes, and it is silly to try. It is. And yet, for whatever reason, we don't see the mirror that sports hold up to us. Sports holds this mirror up to our face and says, do you not see how silly this looks? And instead of accepting that that's what the mirror is showing you, you just compartmentalize it. You say, this is just what it is in sports and it doesn't happen anywhere else. You hide the mirror. You say the mirror is wrong. It doesn't work that way. So that's for waxing philosophical here on Clutch with Keon Rose here on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Thank you for joining me today. Make sure you hit us up on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. Search Hot News Talk Radio. We are the first thing that comes up. Also, look us up on the TuneIn Radio app. It's absolutely free in the Apple Store and the Google Play Store. This has been Clutch with Keon Rose. We'll be talking more college football tomorrow and some Hawks basketball. See you in 23 hours.
Expect cloudy skies with a few passing showers out there through the afternoon. They'll slowly push off to the east. Highs upper 60s to near 70. Tonight, a spotty shower early. Otherwise, some late fog. Lows upper 50s. For Tuesday and Wednesday, some clouds but a little drier. Highs 70 to 72. For lunch or dinner, come to Guthrie's, home of the original golden fried delicious chicken finger with their special world-famous sauce. Open daily locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's. It's always good. And I'm WDEF News Swallow's Chief Meteorologist, Patrick Hoare.
On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Compass Media Network's coverage of the NFL. Hi, this is Jerry Recco. Join Kevin Ray, Danny White, myself for all the action.
Hot News Talk 1240.
If it's